Hello, everyone, and good evening. As you could hear with our intro, today is everything a little bit different than before. I'm not wearing any branded, normal corporate identity stuff. I'm in one of my favorite band shirts because today we're talking about music. And we have two fantastic guests to talk about music. We have Jason Miles, vocalist and guitar player for Bitter Lake. Awesome band, by the way. And of course, the host of This is Revolution podcast. So give a warm welcome to the guy I want to read all my audiobooks. Hello, Jason.
What it do?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I loved our pre-show conversation. It's got me excited.
Yeah, we're nerding out like hell. So, as a second guest, we actually have something special. Someone who has been following our show for quite some time, who has been an avid supporter and got into discussions with me. And I thought, well, that dude knows what he's talking about. So, give a warm welcome to Rune. Rune has been playing in a lot of black metal and crust bands. Rune is not, how can I say, a pseudonym. That's an actual name for him. And he is unironically an occultio communist. Hey, Rune, how are you doing?
Metal comrades.
Metal.
You know, bad people are always fine.
That's true. So, yeah, I would like to start a little bit with like a three-way introduction because we're talking about something that is not, how can I say, something that we grew into over time, that we honed by reading books and got more sharp-witted about. It's something that is close to our hearts, which probably shaped our identity more than a lot of other things in our life. We're talking about subcultures and metal music in this case. To me, together with punk rock and metal, I'd say, are the things that shaped my upbringing. They were sort of a lifeline, so to say, in rural Bavaria when everything just feels like shit. I always had the music to power through. But to our guests, the questions, maybe Jason first. So how did you come up into the metal community? With you, it's actually a little bit also like against the stereotype.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which is actually a bad stereotype in itself, because there are a lot of like famous black guys in metal music. They just don't get the spotlight as they still should. Yeah, Terrence Hobbs said Suffocation. He's a Trump supporter, but he's still an awesome guitar player.
You know, if you go look at some of Suffocation's live stuff, they're wearing their new guitar players wearing Bitter Lake stuff.
Really?
Yeah, we played a show at a venue in Washington, in Seattle, Washington, and Suffocation was in a bigger room and we were in a smaller room on tour. And they walked into our room and saw us play, and they were like, "Oh, this is the bomb!" And then they bought some stuff, so that was pretty dope.
Nice. So maybe you start the conversation by tell us a little bit how you got into metal music. How did you connect with that subculture, and then maybe even how it converges or diverges with your political stance? How that development ran in parallel or maybe together for you?
You know, I got to think back to when I was like 9. I'm 44 now. So, I early on, the imagery of punk and metal was kind of pop imagery. It was very popular, especially for an anti-authoritarian view. So horror movies, I was into horror movies as a kid. My mom dated musicians, so having guitar-based music in the house wasn't foreign to me. And it wasn't that foreign at the time. So even though rap music is on the ascendancy in the mid 80s, where I'm from in the San Francisco Bay Area, metal is kind of the dominant. Harder rock, and the imagery of harder rock is the dominant culture. And then there were so many bands that were kind of near me at the time. Exodus is from around my way. Metallica was still living in the Bay Area, so these guys were like really popular even amongst my friends from school, who later went on to form decent sized bands. So wanting to learn the guitar, especially like once I saw Guns N' Roses, I was like, game over. I got to be Slash. So
So you grew a big head of curls, put on a cylinder, and just
No,
started
no. I just my hair was never going to be. My parents aren't Jewish, so my hair was never going to be slash. So me and my cousin would put pillowcases on our heads so we could headbang and listen to Headbangers Ball when we were little kids, like 9, 10 years old. Air guitar
Nice.
until I learned how to figure out how to play on my own. But metal and punk, also the punk scene is pretty prevalent where I was as well. And I stayed with my grandmother for a time, and she had a nephew who was much older. He's in his 70s now, but he introduced me to punk rock music also around that same time. So anything aggressive, I was really into. And at the time, rap music wasn't aggressive the way I wanted music to be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just full throttle metal stuff, saving my lunch money to buy Killing Is My Business, and
Megadeth.
We can go on for hours about that, but enough about me.
Just a quick question, like so that we can start the nerding out already. So if I'm not mistaken, isn't Machine Head also from your area? Isn't it also Bay Area thrash?
Yeah, Rob Flynn literally grew up actually further down the highway, but lived in the city that I'm from, and we actually have a lot of mutuals. I'm good friends with Chris
Nice.
Contos, who tells me some amazing metal stories. So yeah.
First metal gig of my life, Machine Head, 1997 in Munich. I think it was their first Europe tour, supported by Napalm Death and Cold Chamber. It was the first time I've ever heard a blast beat in my fucking life, and it changed my world.
Hearing Chris tell the story of them opening for Slayer on their first tours, and then as their record's taking off, getting the phone call from the label, they're like, all right, you're going to go on a headlining tour. Here's Saxon's lighting rig. They're like, what is this? We got to headline these rooms? We were just playing 200 seaters a second ago.
Nice.
Yeah, so no, those are good dudes.
Nice, cool. So Rune, over to you. What's your coming of age in terms of metal and punk music?
Oh, it's already started at home. So during my childhood, and I was not very consciously listening to music, but my parents, they already listened to rock music like Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin. So my mother
Good
is
start.
probably one of the greatest Queen fans around.
So
and well, during the so-called reunification of Germany, we already got the music TV, and MTV was becoming a great thing, and that's when I saw Guns N' Roses for the very first time, and I really fell in love with November Rain.
oh,
Really?
nice one. Nice.
What was it about that song for you?
Actually, it was about grandeur and
About what?
about grandeur and Traurigkeit,
Sadness.
sadness. Yeah.
Ah, okay. I respect that. It had this god awful video clip with Slash rocking out in front of a church and some guy doing a dive bomb into a wedding cake for no reason. It was hilarious.
I was not a fan of the follow-up record, and because that record was the one that really like hurt my feelings, like Lies. So that's Lies is the EP after Appetite, right? So and November Rain comes out on the double album. But if you remember, and maybe again, I don't know, everything's different in different countries as far as release schedules. Appetite came out and just blew me away, and then when Lies hit, which was the EP with like what was the song on there? There was Patience.
Mm-hmm.
Again, save the lunch money. Go buy the cassette, and I heard One in a Million. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can listen to these dudes anymore.
I get that.
But they've removed that song apparently from their catalog.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. But coming back to Rune a little bit, but it's a steep step from what I've heard. I've heard some of your records, which were pretty fucking intense. I dug that. That was real, like frantic black metal. A little bit in the for like maybe as a ballpark for you, Jason. A little bit in the vein of, I had the feeling that was like a certain kind of like Celtic frost gust breezing through. So how did you step from Guns N' Roses to black metal, Rune?
Yeah, when I was at school, I began to discover the music for myself for the first time, and yeah, I began so with Iron Maiden. Very importantly, the Dio incarnation of Iron Maiden, not the Dickinson.
Okay. You mean Blaze Bailey? I need Paul Diano.
Yellow.
Paul
Yeah.
Diano. Ah, yeah. Sure. Jesus Christ! I hope our audience can follow us with
Like-
that nerd level.
And later, well, System of a Down, and from there, I was fixed, and I needed, well, the harder stuff like Creator and Moonspell.
Yeah, we were about the same age, aren't we, Rune? We were about like in our late 30s.
Mid 30s.
Okay.
But and from there, I discovered that Moonspell, in their very prime incarnation, they played some kind of so-called black metal, and that's when I looked more for black metal records, and I stepped over to the Scandinavian black metal outfits like Emperor, Dissection, and Dark Throne.
Emperor played a huge role in my life. I listened to them when I was 14. Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. Really, there are some of these albums that are just game changers, like the way you listen to music. And I'd say the most important one to me was, I think, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, Faith No More, which kind of like opened all my windows for like, oh, there's a huge distorted sounding guitar. So let's take it from here. Still, I still think it's the best record they ever recorded, personally. And yeah, but it's a bit similar. And then you, like by accident, a friend of a friend has a new CD, and it has this like new level of intensity with death metal and black metal and grindcore and thrash metal. And you're like, what the hell is going on here? These dudes are so fucking angry. Yeah,
I remember I bought Death's Leprosy when it came out. And I don't know if you guys had this where you grew up in Germany. I'm sure you did when you guys were much younger. When you would go to the record store and you would run to the metal section and you would buy records based on album cover.
That's how it all started. My dad's record cupboard, Iron Maiden, Aces High, maxi single vinyl. And it had a zombie in an airplane on the cover. And I was 13 years old and was like, there's a zombie in an airplane on the cover.
That's how it was for me. I'm assuming it's similar for you guys too. It was like the scarier the album cover looked, for me, it was like, I need to hear what this band sounds like. And I remember getting Killing Is My Business. I was probably in like the 6th grade, so I was like 11. And I know Dave Mustaine hates the original cover, but for me, that original cover looks like a madman's basement, like his murder basement. And it sounds like the soundtrack to being handcuffed in a madman's murder basement. When you hear that, that tap with the piano riff for Love to Death. So album covers for me, it was like 100% album covers and death metal bands. At that time, well, probably what we would call thrash bands now, at that time had the best covers. I mean, somebody mentioned Creator, best cover.
Yeah.
Destruction, best covers.
Yeah. Pleasure to Kill.
Probably
the best cover of them.
Yeah. And when you saw that title, you knew, like, okay, I got to get this. Pleasure. It says Pleasure to Kill. Look at it. Let's put it on. Agent Orange. Yeah. Let's go.
So it's probably also one of the first German black metal albums, that you could say.
Yeah, maybe.
Would
At
you
least
call
the
it that?
prototype.
Yeah, so Black and Thrash, or
Yeah, I feel you.
I mean, just look at the band pictures of their first E EP.
Actually, I think Creator are a good starting point for discussing this a little bit, because Creator are from a very rural, not rural, other way around. They're from a mining background. They're from the mining area in Germany, the Ruhrgebiet. So a lot of German thrash metal bands actually worked as miners as their day jobs. Pretty tough work. And then they played thrash metal like after like digging like a ton of dirt every day. And so it actually had a strong connection to real hardcore labor working class, and also had like this kind of attitude. So what's your perspective on this? Because when I got into metal, I had a different gauge of what was left wing, to be perfectly honest. Everything that was not Nazi was kind of lefty already. Like, you know, like how Antifa is today, you know, like we're against Nazis, we're lefties. Ah, yeah. Sure, you know, even my grandma is against Nazis and she's a fucking Catholic conservative. So is she left wing Antifa now? Huh? Is she? Is she? No, but kidding. So kind of like metal always had this attitude of rebelliousness, and I think even Black Sabbath are from a like industrial working class
Working
background.
class, yeah.
Yeah, Tony Iommi downtuned his guitar because he had too much tension on his strings because he lost fingers in a machining accident. So it's like it's directly connected actually to working class attitude. But when I got into metal already, it must have been around like 94, 95 ish. So it already was a rather nerdy community, a community that kind of like revolved around themselves and a lot of attitude, a metric shit ton of attitude. You know, you had the right guitar sound, you had the right guitar look, you had the right, like everything, for everything there was a right and a wrong. You know, like it was like experimentation was not the key. So how was it for you? Was it did you see, how can I say, still I embraced its freedom as being from Catholic southern Bavaria. I was like, wow, this is against everything that I also hate and find boring. But still there was no, how can I say, actual, how can I say, questioning the system or something like that in there. How was it for you when you got into metal? What was the political or the social political climate?
I think for you guys, it's going to be a little different because you're getting into it at a different time, and you're coming from it, and I find this very, very fascinating. So I'm actually going to be a bit of a pedestrian in this conversation and sit back and really listen to you guys talk about being in a newly reunified Germany post the wall falling and listening to this music, which, you know, it has to be kind of, you know, liberating in a way. I'm coming from pre end of history, so the USSR is still a thing, and I feel like a lot of metal bands at that time used the USSR as just more almost cosplay window dressing for the idea of being anti. You can look at old pictures of the late Paul Bailoff wearing his CCP hockey jersey, and you can find a lot of pictures of old metal guys wearing CCP paraphernalia. And you have to ask yourself, are they really embracing the politics of socialism, or is this the way to say F you, mom? And a lot of it is just the look of anti, because a lot of metal music is built on the culture of deconstruction, right? And a lot of it is also built on the culture of authenticity. So metal and punk, I would even say more so, maybe they're just 1 and 1A when it comes to being very conservative genres, as far as, oh, you have that amp, you're not cool. You're playing that guitar, then that means you play this music. It's like, no, not necessarily. What if I just like a BC Rich Warlock? Like, I have to play death metal with this. So there is somewhat of a conservative aspect to both of the genres that I love and hold dear, because every time these bands that we love start to mature and grow musically, there's always some sort of backlash from the fans.
Mm.
You know, if you're getting into metal in '94, this is around the time that Metallica, who started to become everyone's entryway point into heavy music, has cut their hair. And that
Load.
was like a no-no for a lot of people. Like, I
Yeah.
remember headlines in the local weekly paper was Metallica cut their hair and haircuts for all and stuff like that. And did the haircut change the music, or did the success change the music? Did the new audience change the music? What's sad to me about that band is I feel like they're still trying to chase some sort of acceptance by the
Mhm.
fans, you know, which kind of sucks in a way, because I can go back and listen to some of those post Black Album records, and while they're definitely not my go-to or my favorite, there are decent songs on them. And even people I know in the heavy music genre that play like black metal stuff come back and like, dude, I love Load. Like there's good riffs, there's good songs on Load.
Until It Sleeps is a hell of a song, in my opinion.
I love that song. I'd like to hear a cover of it. So it's interesting that you guys are coming to this genre of music at a time where it's going through a bit of you're personally going through a cultural shift. Number one, a political and cultural shift, and number two, metal is starting to open up its doors to different cultures, because as much as we may not like new metal, the idea of an Armenian group like System of a Down and having elements, cultural elements in their music, and we're finally seeing more and more different ethnicities sharing culture in music. Sepultura kind of accepting more of their Brazilian roots, adding some of these tribal drums. It's really expanding the sound to a degree, which I found somewhat interesting. But then, of course, it always gets contrived, because ultimately these are the sounds from the American standpoint of the suburbs, of the bourgeoisie. You know, anything that's interesting that you get from this era gets co-opted, and you know, sadly, what we remember with new metal is Limp Bizkit, and
Yeah.
which
Well,
is
when you were drunk, that was one hell of a party song, like the Nookie.
give me something to break, yeah, all that stuff.
So Henning, yes, Rune.
No, Limp Bizkit, no.
No.
But System of a Down, I wouldn't consider them new metal, really. I mean, okay, they might have been there at the same time like Linkin Park and all those other weirdos, but I think they had a complete different sound. And when I listened to the first album, they had, hell, there was even some grindcore in it. So
That's
yeah.
true. There were a lot more chaos and a lot more creativity to them than just like the oofta 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 of new metal.
I like that, the oofta oofta.
I have to say that there is music for being drunk, and there's music for listening to while you're sober, and new metal is definitely music to listen to while you're drunk.
I tried to get into Limp Bizkit. It's just not it was never my thing. I think, look, System of a Down comes up in the same scene as Coal Chamber, as Limp Bizkit, as Orgy, as Linkin Park. These bands are all coming up in the same scene, but they actually have very different sounds. It's almost like grunge. I've never felt grunge as a genre. Grunge is a look. There's no sonic through line. Those bands sound very different. And if you think about the first kind of wave of what we would call new metal, a lot of those guys, you know, am I saying your name right? Is it Rune?
Rune, yeah.
yes, it's Rune.
Rune?
Rune.
If you think about that first wave of what people will call new metal, it's sonically pretty different. And the only thing that people kind of use to group it is a down-tuned guitar. And I don't think the Deftones, on their first record, the Deftones are tuning to E standard. That's not down-tuned. But they're lumped in with the new metal sound for some reason. Is it the rapping? Is it the idea of a DJ? You know, is it the slowed down tone? Because Korn's first record is definitely in drop B flat on a 7 string, or A flat on a 7 string, right? But does Korn sound like Incubus?
Which Incubus are you talking about? Sorry,
you know, Fungus Among Us Incubus, which is coming out. They're all touring together, you know.
Yeah, sure. To me, Incubus is still a death metal band that changed their name sometime. I think they're called Opprobrium now.
Oh, so you're not talking about Brandon Boyd, the Pretty Boys from the 90s?
I don't know. I only know of an alternative rock band.
Yeah, I think that's what Desmond's talking about. Yeah, but that's actually, yeah.
No, I don't think they sound the same at all. But might be the same with you know, the old proto death metal, proto black metal stuff. It all just had some a certain red line, like satanic lyrics and some imagery, but you know, Hellhammer doesn't sound like Merciful Fate at all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But how you said that, like Jason said, that metal was kind of like a middle finger to his, or to the status quo, the conservative status quo of his surroundings. It's actually pretty akin to what hardcore used to be. So I'm really interested, because I have no fucking idea. How was it in Eastern Germany for you, Rune? What was the metal scene consisting of, and what was its driving motivation?
Oh, where I grew up, there was not really a metal scene to speak of. It was more predominantly hardcore punk and RAC.
Of course, Eastern Germany. What do you say? Yeah, that's a sad fact.
So, and it was to me, it was always about the music, not about some kind of political stance that I took.
So, does it coincide? Is there like a timely coincision for the two of you when you started considering yourself left wing, and when you started listening to metal, or is this it was what is the development for you personally here? Did it touch base? Like, I started listening to metal and I also got into politics, or was that different development?
Metal, for me, when I was first listening to like the first thrash stuff, so this is like, you know, late 80s, it has a pseudo political feel to it, right? Slayer's singing about Auschwitz, but are they really, you know, fervent anti-Nazis because they love the imagery?
Yes,
maybe to a fault. Or is it just something kind of dark to sing about? You know, Metallica has some sort of anti-war songs. They all have kind of anti-war songs, but I bought into the hype that this was about something bigger than me. And there's a video for Peace Sells But Who's Buying, where this young man is watching the video and his father comes in the room. He goes, "I want to watch the news." And the kid goes, "This is the news." And he turns it back to the Megadeth video. And I think that's how a lot of us felt when listening to the music, that we were politically active and in kind of an apolitical time. So, you know, punk music was the first wave of hardcore punk is very anti-Reagan. And then you have the year 1984 where Reagan wins again in a landslide. Thatcher's still in charge. So there's a feel of defeat in that music. And I think it gets extremely nihilistic, and maybe even by the time the 90s hit, gets a little stereotypical of what you would think that a quote unquote political anti-authoritarian group would sound like. Because you have to ask yourself, if you're constantly singing to the same 100 people, are you trying to make anything for a larger audience if you really have some sort of movement that you're about? When you think about movement music, people aren't singing "Ayo, let's go" at protests. They sing like folk music for a reason, because it's something that can unite a lot of people, as corny as some of those songs may be.
Mhm. And Rune, for you, how was it there with how does your political stance connect or not connect to your subcultural upbringing?
I'd say it doesn't connect very well at all, because my grandfather was in the SED,
Mhm.
my father was in the SED, so well, probably I had to become a communist.
So you're just carrying the torch of the family.
And yes, and I think I don't really need music to validate my own worldview, but it's something that's really outlandish for me, and so very.
Mhm.
Like, I'm shocked at certain bands that actually have good politics,
Yeah.
because getting to know a lot of people in the business, at best you get, I'm talking bigger names
Mm.
in the industry. At best you get liberals.
Mm.
At best, you're not getting too many radical politics. I
Yeah.
recently came across Killing Joke
Yes.
on social media, and they had a hammer and sickle as their social media insignia, and I was kind of blown away by that. I was like, oh, I guess you guys are really about it.
It's like political switch. It's like political switch, no?
Yeah. Yeah, but with Killing Joke, actually, I saw them live a couple of times, and then I have to say, sometimes there's like even if they're radical, there's kind of like maybe it's because they're artists, and artists are like like a breed of their own, because then the vocalist was going into this full on rant about chemtrails, and was like, yeah, you kind of like
What did I tell you? At best.
At best, yes, and that's a little bit the thing, and I think that's, I don't know. Metal loves to sell the rebellion, like the I'm anti-establishment, I'm anti-system. But I don't know any major bands who had radical social politics, and I think that's a little bit the how can I say, the poisoned chalice. Because one of my favorite bands was super important for me growing up was the band that Pete Steele had before Typo Negative, Carnivore. And they were so tasteless with their lyrics that if a band would like kind of like pop up now and have the same lyrics as Carnivore, I think I would be pissed and would say, like, guys, this is like 2022. I don't think we have to call songs male supremacy anymore. I still love Jesus Hitler to the death. I love that lyrics. That's tasteless to it's like almost an artistic perfection. How can you be the most offensive band? But the thing is, like there was nothing behind it. To the contrary, I personally am rather convinced that Pete Steele was probably rather right-wing. And I know that he had, it already happened in the chat, he hung out, when he was in Germany, he hung out with bands that were actually openly fascist. So the thing is, and that's I think you made even an essay about, but it was more connected to the punk scene. I think this being all about the evil performance, kind of like if you look at it very closely, it's already a little bit in there, because what are they striking at? Are they striking at the way that people are like? Are they striking at the ways of like at the means of production? Are they striking at like how power dynamics are actually in our society, or are they somewhat anti-authority and super macho while being that? So to me, I think, and I mean this like really with a lot of love, because I wouldn't be the human being I am today without a metal and a punk community. Definitely not. So I take this like as a solidarity criticism. We say that solidarische Kritik in Germany. But I think there is like in itself already a rather reactionary element, like in the actual meaning of the word. You're reacting to something instead of driving something forward. Like if for example, if Satanism would be the religion of the US, they would be Christians. Like, it's not that they chose Satanism as a means of offending people. And if being offensive is your only mode of work, you're easily baited, like into how can I say, into going the wrong direction, like kicking the wrong people in your lyrics, for example.
If you think about the idea of a culture of deconstruction, and I call the culture of deconstruction the culture of no, right? All I'm about is no. If you think about the culture of authenticity, that is the gatekeeping culture of who gets to come in and play, who gets to be part of your scene. Those things will always work to neutralize one another, to kind of keep you insulated and small. And you have to ask yourself, why does hardcore punk not blow up the way metal does? And punk is a lot simpler to digest. It's generally 3 chords. It's just as fast. It's just as nihilistic, if that's what you're looking for. The imagery is pretty similar. Sometimes lyrics are indistinguishable as they're being yelled. Why does one grow and one doesn't? I don't think that the metal community was any more accepting of success than the punk community was, because in 94 or 92, when you start to get Nirvana and they sign a major label record deal, Nirvana, in my opinion, is no different from their predecessors. Nirvana is the extension of Black Flag, of Flipper, right? It's just a different branding. And they're totally fine with that branding. They're totally fine with corporate sponsorship. They're totally fine with playing corporate festivals. They may complain about it here and there. It may weigh on their soul here and there, but ultimately, they're fine with being part of the system. And metal music has never pushed back being part of the system. Our proto-metal bands, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, all them motherfuckers had jets. And had no problem with having motherfucking jets. So how anti are you really? I'm not saying everyone that straps on a guitar and wants to get the metal zone distortion into their Line 6 amp.
Oh my God.
It's
Many careers were started with this setup.
Right? I'm not saying every one of those people wants a jet. I don't believe that. I refuse to believe that. But what I'm saying is that the music itself never really told us it was anything more than what it was. You know, since I have been listening and consuming this stuff, there has been massively large rock stars. I'm watching them on my television playing massively large festivals. You know, I never saw Metallica play a living room party. I'm not saying they didn't, just didn't see it. Those weren't the images that we were given in this era. It's big stages, big bands doing big stuff. We projected onto them maybe more than they were. And Une has, I love when he says, music doesn't make my politics. I dig that, right? I hate labels. I was in a band before Bitter Lake with my ex called Le Fin Absolute du Monde. We hated labels. We always got labeled something we weren't. And it was just really, really difficult until finally Justin Broderick from Godflesh took us on tour. And that really helped a lot as far as us no longer playing with like acoustic groups and shit like that. But that's another person that hates labels.
Yeah.
You know, hates being put into a box and makes the music that they want to make. I would never say Justin is an anti-capitalist.
Yeah. Probably not. I wouldn't.
Good dude.
Is he actually? That's a good question, because I have the feeling that in there's a difference, and I think this is also something that we can talk about a little bit. I think there's a bit of a difference in the attitude between the UK, the US, and also Germany. We have no one from the UK here. I'm sorry about that, but I think I can kind of like dip in just a little bit. But because I think in the UK we had like at least, how can I say, not in too mainstream metal, but in the underground, I think we always had a strong connection to the punk community there, and I think the punk community in the UK was always a lot more class conscious than the US American punk community. If you look at the lyrics, for example, of bands like Crass or Discharge or something like that, that's actually that's true, especially Discharge. That's honest to God anti-capitalist music.
Yes.
So best punk band ever anyway, so no, but just kidding. But you had like you had bands that, or even metal bands, like, I'm not, because I was going to go for grindcore, but that's a little bit of a cheap shot because grindcore is like mix half punk half metal. But even like death metal bands like Bolt Thrower, that's for me they're an interesting example because they are all, I would even say, honest to God, lefties. It just doesn't play a role for their music. Their music is about war machinery, about battle axes, chainsaws, and stuff like that. If there is any, how can I say, like criticism of the system, it's kind of like thinly veiled into actually rather cool, adventurous war songs. And in Germany, it was a little bit different. In Germany, you had maybe Rune can add and correct me if I say something wrong. Like I think in the beginning, you had some sort of like consciousness about where these people came from. As I said, like Sodom and Creator, they were all like miners. Like
Tankard too.
Yes, and there's even a great movie. I really love that movie. It's called Verlierer, Losers in Germany. It actually was produced by a German TV channel. It's about kids in the thrash metal scene. It's fun. You even see some thrash metal bands from that age playing live. And that was a really interesting movie about people being poor, about people being working class, not having a perspective, like, except to die in the fucking mines. Like this is like a very hard job, even in the 20th century. Being a miner was not good for your health. And I have the feeling that this got a little bit, even this hint of it, like this nuance of some sort of consciousness that maybe there is like a structural injustice in the world. I think this got a little bit lost. And for the US, I would agree with what you say, Jason. I also love your video essay that you made about like the culture of deconstruction and authenticity. I wholeheartedly agree. I just for Germany, I'm not entirely sure what went on there. Maybe something similar. Maybe the nerdification. I think in Germany.
Well, let me ask you guys this question, because also we talk about class and stuff. Do you guys have music class in your schools?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
And you can get instruments and stuff?
As well, there's the cheapest way of getting a musical education is going to the so-called Musikschule, music school. And there you can get cheap rentals or even like play with the instruments there. They're mostly shitty, so you're encouraged to buy your own. But I would say getting into music is a lot easier than in the US. But let's be honest, all the people that I know that send their kids to music school are the ones that are at least middle class.
That's what I was getting at, because, in the 60s and 70s, if you think about like funk music in America, these guys learn how to play either in the church or at school. And even bands like Confunction from Oakland, these guys all got together in school, and there was a school band that they were a part of. And once you lose that ability to have instruments given to you in school, it's really hard for the genre to grow. And I think another thing we don't talk enough about with these music genres is, how are young people getting instruments? There's a reason why electronic music is so popular. It's easy to make. You don't need a whole band. You can make it with headphones on. That's a game changer for a lot of people, not having to make noise. especially as space gets more expensive to rent. I mean, there was a time when we talk about like the first wave of punk and art rock and metal and all that stuff, it's cheap to get an apartment. You can't have the hair metal scene in LA in 2022 like you had it in 1982 and 83 because no one could afford the rent. These guys weren't working day jobs and putting on big shows with explosions, you know, and granted in nightclubs, but instruments were a lot cheaper, rent was a lot cheaper, so you could make music and do your thing. Now you have to ask yourself, who the hell can afford to go on tour?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can go on tour, can you leave your country?
Or the other way around, can you enter a country? Many a band was rejected at the borders of the US by in the last couple of years.
Oh, because of COVID?
No, because of actually, I don't know if it was the travel restrictions from the Patriot Act, but they.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, but like not even bands where I'm like, oh, poor you. So like Take, who I at least politically don't appreciate that much.
They were banned?
They were not allowed to enter, as far as I remember. Maybe Rune, do you know?
I don't know, but I know that Emperor, the guitarist Samus, was rejected entry because he burned a church in Norway back in the 90s.
True. He's a felon. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, there was a time when only the vocalist of Emperor was not imprisoned.
But I thought all those church burners play in the States. Now, Mayhem's definitely played in the States. Weren't they part of the church burning posse?
Yeah,
but everybody who burned a church from Mayhem is already dead. So,
well, no. Bach is still living in France and doing god awful podcasts about how. What was it?
Okay, I wouldn't consider him a member of Mayhem, but okay.
He did play bass on the first album, though. He did. Or am I mistaken, Rune?
Yes, you did, but I thought you meant the current members.
No. I have a kind of veto from Nadim. He's saying that in der Schule lernt man kein Instrument. You don't learn instruments in school. That's true. And like if you're in a standard school, you don't like learn an instrument thoroughly, but you get the foundations. And if they're like locally, at least in where I grew up, you had these music schools. They were like in the afternoon, probably in some community house, like from the Verwaltung. And there you could learn instruments for rather cheap money, like not comparing in any which way to a private teacher.
Well, we had a keyboard class in 5th and 6th grade. But
really?
Yes, really.
Interesting. Okay.
I find all that stuff very important to get people playing because it's hard. First of all, not everybody has money to buy an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I had to rent an instrument. My grandmother rented a guitar for me, and I didn't even get an amp. I had to plug it in through the stereo and blow my mom's speakers so I could get distortion. And have her say, "Did you do something to the stereo?" No. What are you talking about? It always sounded like that when you play Beat It. But you know, that to me is kind of like the foundation. And you're also who gets to play this music, right? And when we think about in the next piece, I'm writing a sequel to that punk and politics piece. And it's called The Rise of Pop Punk, The End of History and the Rise of Pop Punk.
Mm-hmm.
Because after the fall, when the U.S. really has no big bad and there's a lot of deregulation going on in the United States financial system, and after Kurt Cobain dies in 94, 94 is a big year for a lot of deregulation legislation. And also it's the year that Cobain dies and Green Day releases Dookie. And that's kind of a very important time because we're calling punk pop punk.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a genre for consumption.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a genre of consumption. And if you start thinking about these festivals that maybe they were kind of towards the end, it became kind of like cross genre. I think it was called Taste of Chaos by the time it hit Europe. But we had a tour in the States called the Warp Tour, the Vans Warp Tour. And initially it was a lot of punk, like Sublime and No Doubt played the early ones. But as it went on, it was more bands of, they were called the Hot Topic era, which was a store we have in malls.
Hot Topic goths is a genre in itself.
Is so you kind of know what it is.
I have friends from the US. They explained all the Hot Topic stuff to me. Like, how this is, like we had something similar in Germany. It was called the Extra X. It was also like a brand for goth and punk, which was super cheap quality for a heinous amount of money, and you could always see if someone was shopping there.
Oh yeah,
white belt, right? White belt, the swoopy hair. That became kind of a way not to introduce young people to new music, but it was more of a way to sell energy drinks, apparel, cigarettes. That's really all that stuff was. Music festivals are heavily sponsored. They're just vehicles for brands. That's it. As a person that has worked inside, I'm talking doing the numbers with the promoters, it's just a way to push product. That's kind of it. So when we think about all these bands that we think are anti, especially the first wave of people, they had no problem playing Warped Tour, corporate sponsored. They had no problem playing corporate sponsored equipment. They had no problem licensing their names and imagery to stores like Hot Topic. So yeah,
I would kind of like go over to Rune now, because Rune is with being from the black metal background. This is a scene that never had the commercial, how can I say, approach of mainstream metal. I think this is the wrong distinction, but it's the best one I can come up with right now.
Though there was some kind of success with Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth.
That's true. But they're held in contempt by black metal fans, I heard, or I know.
Yeah, mostly. But they are mostly considered an entry drug.
Yeah, a lot of yeah. But the thing is, like on what, for like that would be interesting to me. On what is the for example, the black metal community in Eastern Germany sustaining itself? So because they don't have the success, the financial success that like, for example, like thrash metal or death metal has.
Yeah, but usually they all have jobs and sometimes even families. And yeah, mostly they release an album every 10 or so years.
That's true. That's true.
Except if you can do the bidding for a label and they can support you financially, but and mostly you get limited press. Like my first band, we had a contract with Black Hate Records, and they did 1,500 units, and half of that we got, and half of that kept the label. So.
Funnily enough, the underground attitude of German black metal wasn't enough to save it from commodification. Rune, do you remember last episode, the record label?
Oh yes.
Oh yes. Last episode
they promoted their bands to death, literally.
Yes. It was a label that was run by a guy who, as far as I know, wasn't even into the music at all. He looked like your standard bougie, like plays tennis in his spare time kind of whitey dude. And he just signed everything that had studded belts and pentagrams, and did horrendous productions with them. So the production values of all the issues of last episode, they were like really god awful. And by sheer mass, none of them were successful, but by sheer mass, he was able to sustain a rather luxurious lifestyle. And when it didn't work out anymore, he filed for chapters. I think it's called Chapter 11 in the US. In Germany, we say he filed for insolvency. So it's interesting because even the most underground stuff like is not safe from commodification. It's just happening. It's just happening.
But he made a comeback with Black Attack.
Oh, I heard about that, but I didn't check it out yet. I have to say I have like 3 or 4 CDs from last episode, and most of them are shit, to be honest.
But he even had Dark Fortress, for example.
I don't know them. I'm sorry. I know that he had Mystic Circle, and they sucked balls.
Yeah, but they released under last episode or last epitaph. Don't know.
Yeah. No, but actually, I think.
But I thought you knew them. They're also from Bavaria. They're from Landshut.
Ah, okay.
And they did, I think, their third album. Well, they released on Black Attack because they were disappointed with their American label, and and after that they signed with I think Season of Mist or some big.
That's in Rome, right?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah, I know somewhere in Europe.
It's also one of those labels who just doesn't give a shit about who they sign in terms of politics. So there are some rather weird bands on there as well.
I saw an online fight that people were having with someone from their band.
No, fake news. It's Century Media.
Ah, okay, that's a huge one. That's the one of I Hate God, Napalm Death, etc.
Everybody.
Yeah, like everybody. True.
Because they do distribution too.
Ah, yeah.
But the bigger one, I think, is Nuclear Blast is by you.
Nuclear Blast that's actually funny because Nuclear Blast started out as a punk label in like the early 80s or mid 80s, and then it became a rather smallish death metal label. And when Nuclear Blast was always like more to the extreme, and I think with the success of, like, Rune, please correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think with the success of bands like Dimmu Borgir and stuff like that, they started signing on like everything and their mamas, and I think Sepultura is now with Nuclear Blast as well.
They had Megadeth for a minute, didn't they? And a couple other large bands for a minute.
Yep. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect cars. This guy collects bands.
Yeah, right.
If you have the funds.
What would interest me? I have 2 like main questions left for today, and I think they can sustain us another 2 or 3 hours at least. But one of the questions I would like you to just in terms of, because I called this LABERRUNDE, which means like talking round, I called this politics and metal, or metal and politics. And I kind of like cheated there a little bit for my personal opinion, but I first want to ask you the question, like metal as a subculture. Is it can you even like use the terminology like metal as something you can take as one scene? Is metal, is there like a big enough red line running through everything that is kind of like metal music to be even talking about one scene here?
Well, I would say it's heavy music, and the mostly connector is, the image of the wild man, the noble savage.
The noble. It has to be a little bit noble. You're true. Yeah, that's true. But you have some bands which are downright barbaric in their imagery. I saw these guys from Australia called Impetuous Ritual. They were dressed like I don't know, like extras from a Mad Max movie. It was like.
Did you ever come around Blasphemy from Canada?
I heard about them, but I didn't check them out yet.
The Satanic Skinheads.
Oh yeah, but the Satanic Skinhead thing, isn't that the thing run by this really weirdo, creepy guy called Antichrist Kramer?
No, I mean the so-called subculture within black metal. There's,
you mean like
they were anti everything, so they shaved their heads off. They did bodybuilding. They tuned their guitars down to C or something. And basically they sounded like grindcore with satanic lyrics and really sinister atmosphere.
That's actually something that I would like to ask in the next question. I would like please keep that thought, because that satanic skinhead thing is crazy. I'm gonna talk about this in a couple of seconds, but maybe for Jason, like what's your take on this? Is metal one huge subculture for you, or is it like a bundle of subcultures that have some sort of connection?
For me personally, heavy music is one subculture for me.
Interesting.
Punk, hardcore, whatever you want to call yourself. If your guitars are distorted, you're one subculture of music, in my opinion. But sadly, I think we're so separated by micro genres. You know, and I'm going to go back to the Code Orange, you know, because all my years working at Coachella, I never really saw a heavy band. I think 1 year I was there, Perfect Circle played, but that felt like a favor to have them on the bill. But Code Orange playing Coachella is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And the slot they got was actually a pretty decent time slot that they played in. I don't know what that means for heavy music, but heavy music in general, just over the past 10 years or so, has really just been trying to, you know, silo itself off from the mainstream. There's certain guys that want to get a foothold into the mainstream, but a lot of the more mainstream heavy bands kind of sound like country music to me. And there's not much of a political difference between some of these guys and modern day right-wing country music rhetoric.
I think we got the same thing here in Europe with some power metal bands.
Yeah, that's true.
It's sad.
Did you ever listen to Sabaton or Powerwolf?
Oh my fucking God.
Sabaton, yeah, I know Sabaton.
I do think, and I'm gonna say this out loud live on stream, I do think that the listening of Sabaton and Nightwish ought to be punished by slapping your foot soles with a cable for 10 times for every running minute. God, I hate those bands so much.
Nah, just cool again.
No, they came through. They came through to the States. I mean,
to me, Nightwish and Sabaton are heavy music for people that hate heavy music. That's that's the thing about them. No, but I'm a little bit kidding. But I feel what you're aiming at. But the other thing that I see is, and this is where I'm gonna come back to the satanic skinhead stuff a little bit, is like not. I think we already established a little bit that metal and politics don't necessarily mix, and even so, it doesn't mean a lot. Like it's a lot of posturing. There's only does anyone? But maybe quick question. Anyone of you know a radical left-wing metal, not punk, radical left-wing metal band that uses that in their lyrics? Radical left-wing, not liberals. So nobody drops Soilwork or any other bullshit at me.
You said Soilwork?
Yeah. They're like my grandmother's idea of being a nice guy, and so that's not lefty music to me.
Well, I know some bands from Russia. Funnily, because that's the biggest NSBM scene ever.
Yeah, probably that in Ukraine.
But, there is Yarost Maxsa. They are, I think, a black metal band, a communist black metal band, and
someone has been dropping Panopticon in the chat. Yes, thank you for that one. That's actually
maybe Wolves in the Throne Room could be considered left wing, but
are they?
Somewhat primitivism, I'd say. I wouldn't say left wing. To me, they always feel like I don't know, like somebody who would just wants to live in a hut and doesn't like technology. I love them. I have to say, I like Wolves in the Throne Room. So I don't want to shit on them at all. So.
And there was some years ago a black metal band from Magdeburg that I knew, with a very epic name, Gulag Hammer.
Damn.
Nightmare Reality just dropped The Mighty Trespasser into the chat. Yeah, but that's punks. They just want to play metal because punk is too primitive to them. But yeah. Trespasser is the shit. Get their album. Jesus Christ. That album, it's dedicated to anarchist struggles all over the world. It has a black metal cover version of To the Barricades that just kind of, yeah, if you ever want music to kind of like burn cities down to, like capitalist cities, of course, just capitalist cities, then that's the record for you. Huge fan. I got like 4 T-shirts, and I got the record twice because I got it colored and not colored because I love that band so much. So thanks, Nightmare Reality, for dropping Trespass on us.
You know what? Here's how I look at it, and I know your time is going on over now.
That's okay. It's okay. We have some.
We're good. Okay. If you can sell it, someone will be it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can sell yourself as being left wing, someone will be left wing if it sells records and if it gets someone at the right magazine to. If Metal Hammer could do a whole article on you being the left wing metal guy, then that's what your band will be. But politics in metal music, it kind of in music in general right now, there may be some bands that are small that are political, but when we talk about more of the larger, more mainstream bands, it's pretty much an apolitical time for music. There's not really much coming out. And even after 2016, when people kept saying, oh, we're going to get some great music with these fascists in office all over the world, it's like, really? What did we get? You get people trying to stay afloat. That's what you get. Doing the same thing that they've been doing. Here we are coming off of, we're still in the middle of a COVID crisis. I haven't really heard the great definitive COVID album.
Oh, I did. I have to put my COVID soundtrack was, when it came out, was the most recent I Had God. That one was just kind of kept me afloat.
Really?
It even had some COVID related lyrics.
Oh, okay. I need to check it out. Because really, when we think about these moments, because like we talk about bands and shifting this and why didn't this guy blow up and this and that, we always forget that there's definitely different political moments in time. There's moments in time where we have more disposable income to spend on things like music, and we haven't really had that level of disposable income that people had in the 90s and the 80s, when all these bands sold a lot of records. When they were playing in really big rooms. How many times have you seen a band that you knew, you're like, man, they were playing such a big room before. Why are they in this little bitty club now? Because that's what it is. It's a different time. So where, if you think about music in 1983 and ask yourself, is Metallica really a band? Or that should be, should they be at the top of the charts? And less than 10 years later, this is a band that's literally on top of the charts.
Yeah,
playing the Grammys and things like that.
They are officially an ink.
Yeah,
Metallica, and this is something that when I found that out, I think this kind of puts a lot of things in perspective. Metallica is an ink, like an incorporated. It's like a GmbH in Germany. It's a fucking company.
Yeah,
very large. Very large.
Unironically.
Yeah.
But ask yourself this: would they have been that had it not been for a certain amount of deregulation and ability to have a lot of disposable income, a certain blow up in record labels selling a lot of records? There's a lot of things that go into these bands and these people selling a lot of records and blowing up and becoming that large. It's not that bands aren't as good, and that's why they're not selling 20-some million records. It's a very different time. And the exposure that people are getting to music. I mean, I remember when the Black Album hits, there were people that didn't know who they were. Everyone knew who they were when the Black Album hit. Think
in the chat, the definitive COVID album, Coronavirus Sessions by Bitter Lake. I have to say that Bitter Lake are pretty fucking awesome. So yeah,
I enjoyed making that. But you know, when you think about like how do you get that level of exposure,
Mm,
these moments are gone. There is no music television that is
mm,
going to play, you know, a black metal song in your region that's going to hit 20 million people. That's just not going to happen anymore. You're going to release a record on Spotify. If you're lucky, you'll be on a label that has a bit of a following so you can sell a few copies. Maybe you have enough money, you saved enough to go on tour. I mean, it's hard to tour. I still owe money from a loan I took out on my car because my bandmates said we don't have any money to tour. And it was a chance to go out with a larger band and play rooms where people were at. We've all played shows to the bartender. And this is going to be a chance for Bitter Lake to play shows not to the bartender
mm,
internationally. So how many people are able to do that? And if you can do it, how many people can continue to do it? Because you can't just do it once and then walk away. You have to continuously do that kind of stuff. COVID put a damper on that for a lot of small bands, sadly. So if you were able to keep your practice space, not sell all your instruments during the downturn, keep things going, well, maybe you can keep going. But there's a reason why I'm talking about Code Orange constantly and not about anybody new,
mm,
because they had an infrastructure already set up where they could last through the COVID times. And a lot of bands are coming back and taking less money
mm.
for guarantees just because they're like, look, I'll take less money to play this spot, even the smaller spot, because I need to get back on the road. Now, what does that then do to smaller bands?
It kills their yeah. They can't even afford to go on tour anymore. That's it.
You can't. You can't. So it's a sad state of affairs for music, because I always tell people that when you see things like Fire Festival, I don't know if you guys got wind of what Fire Festival was
Yes,
in
it
the
was a
West.
great meme on Lefty Paul.
that as funny as it is to see those rich people stuck with the cheese sandwiches, that in my opinion, and then the cruises. Do you guys have the metal cruises in Europe
Yes,
too?
I think it's called 20,000 tons of metal or something like that.
Oh, you have, okay, so you have the same
And
thing.
Fun
Okay.
Metal Cruise, yes.
Yeah.
There are
Okay,
several.
that to me, moving forward, for a lot of promoters, for a lot of labels, and for a lot of artists, that's the future. Expensive experiences that people can have that are going to actually pay for that experience.
Mm,
That's how
mm.
you're going to be able to sustain yourself as a certain level of artist. So
Wait,
it's playing the cruises, playing these more what's the word, elite festivals.
mm.
You know what I mean?
And they
Because
don't. They probably don't want to listen to bands, although only if they're very well established that actually have anti-capitalist or super left-wing lyrics. So.
what's the big festival where you guys have? That's I think it's in France. Hellfest is in France, right?
Hellfest is in France. Yeah, that's the biggest one, I think.
I
And
think
that,
you mean Wacken.
yeah, Wacken. Yeah,
Wacken is in Germany.
Wacken is in Germany. Yes.
Okay, so some friends of mine are playing Hellfest.
Hmm.
Good guys, but they have day jobs.
Yeah, of course.
This for them is, I don't want to say a vacation because they've been playing music since the 80s, but it's
I mean,
not, Bitter Lake. Stretch
yeah.
of the imagination. We couldn't
I
afford it.
even before COVID, I saw an interview with Jesus Christ, my brain, vocalist of Testament, Chuck Berry,
Yeah,
or Chuck Billy, Chuck Berry or Chuck Berry,
Chuck Billy.
Chuck Billy. That he is still working a day job when not touring. We're talking about fucking Testament, like one of the it's not big four, but it's close to being one of the largest thrash metal bands in the world, and they still have to do day jobs.
Mhm. They're a big operation.
Kind of like I have the feeling like when we talk about this, it kind of gives me the feeling, or actually this might be a little bit the gist that I take away, that art and politics don't mix well in capitalism anyway.
Can Here, I don't know how you guys feel about this. Une, I don't know how you feel about this. I'm going to make music,
Mhm.
whether you buy it or not. and I'm going to do it because I want to do it. I'm going to do it because I love doing it. And I do it because at this point in my life, I can't stop doing it.
Mhm.
It's okay to do things you love and not try to monetize it.
Mhm.
And that's what we're missing,
Mhm.
especially in the States. Again, I can't speak for Europe, but especially in the States, it's always the need to have to monetize your hobbies and feel that if you call it that, you're a bad person. You're not being true. You're not being real. F that.
Mhm. Mhm. Rune, you wanted to say
Capitalism
something?
is real. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I agree with it.
Okay.
It's just natural that you have to unleash your demons inside.
Mhm. Yeah, it's. I also think that we could actually do an entire episode about the limitations of protest music and political music, in my opinion, as well, because I think the impact that political music has is highly overstated and understated at the same time. Overstated in terms of like broad impact for the society, understated in terms of like how important it can be for people to kind of like unify under a banner. But anyway, what I'm saying is art and politics don't mix in capitalism. Metal is no exception. Although, and this is where it gets in, where I still kind of like I think it's interesting. It always sells off like we're not the establishment. We're anti-establishment. So this is like little bit the basic thing that also like this goes back to the fucking Sex Pistols. Like Sex Pistols were not a band. Sex Pistols were a fucking marketing gag, and whenever I say, whenever somebody tells me like I know punk rock, I like punk rock, I like the Sex Pistols, I'm like, if you had not, I like them too, but that was commodification at its very core. The Sex Pistols were like the dressmen for a fashion label, an underground fashion label, okay, but still, their purpose was not to instill rebellion, not to instill revolution. Their purpose was to wear Vivienne Westwood's clothes and be offensive so that people buy that stuff.
But would you say, because Malcolm McLaren is self-proclaimed student of Guy Debord, and would you say, and I don't disagree with what you said, because I say a lot of that in my writing and in the video essay, that the Sex Pistols are kind of a manufactured band. But there is something about the spectacle, and there's something about Malcolm McLaren as kind of almost slimy as he comes off. I kind of feel that Marx is so entrenched in him that I wish I would have gotten the chance to know him when he was alive, because I'm sure there was some three-dimensional chess that he was playing with those dudes that he didn't get a chance to finish because they burnt out so quick.
Do you think
They burnt out so quick?
Maybe he wanted to lay the seed of revolution with pushing that band. That might I would not even disagree. I think I would say that the effect that they had on music, I think that's, but now we're talking about punk, not necessarily metal, but let's just stick with the heavy music thing that you just, like, I think punk was interesting and countercultural before it was called punk, with bands like MC5, who had like a strong anti-establishment background.
The White Panthers.
Yeah. And then it became establishment with the Sex Pistols, and it took a couple of years until it became honestly anti-establishment again. And I think it kind of like shows you like they tried to commercialize bands like Discharge. They played Top of the Pops, but now they're playing like very, very small clubs again, because that's the kind of message that you cannot push for all eternity, I think. Maybe because they actually disagree with that system. Like, honest to God, I hope so. I really like it.
Here, I'll tell you guys a true story. There's some kids in the Bay Area, and recently, who's the guitar player from At the Gates that does a YouTube channel where he plays guitar?
You mean Ole Nord, the one who has a signal like signature amp by Randall.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy just mentioned these guys. They're dudes I know. I played shows with them. They're called Hemorrhage from
Mm.
San Francisco, Oakland, I think they live in now. And they built a bus, and they built inside their bus, they set it up where they can have their amps, they have the drum in there, and they built like a little PA to go out of it. And they would show up at the metal shows at the small clubs. And you know how you line up outside waiting to get into the club. They pull up, you know, a few hours before doors, play a show right there on the side of the street in their bus. Motherfuckers are like, oh, this is cool. They kept doing this for a couple years. They've been doing this, right? Playing these shows, just showing up, kind of crashing a venue. And it's getting to the point where they were like, people started coming out from the bands. So they played an Exodus show recently, and Gary Holt came out from Exodus and Slayer, and he bought a T-shirt. And Ole from At the Gates had saw them on TV or on YouTube and gave them a great big shout out, because what they're doing is they're saying, we're not going to go through any promoters, we're not going to go through any venues, and we're going to pull up in our bus and we're going to play. And if you want to buy our merch to support us, great. Here's a Venmo if you want to support us, great. But we're going to do this regardless. And they started telling people, we're going to show up at this corner at this time in this city. A couple hundred people are showing up, jumping off the bus and moshing. But how long can they sustain that?
Mm.
Is this a true ideology, or is it a marketing tactic to get entryway into more mainstream venues? I can't answer that question because I haven't talked to them in a while. I don't know what their end goal is, but it's an interesting thing to see. I'd like more people to check that stuff out, not just because I know them, but because it's a whole different way to look at live music in general. What if I just show up at the line, in front of a couple hundred people waiting, and I play my shit? That's kind of dope. And then pull off before the cops come. You know? That's dope. That's punk rock. That's metal. That's all the shit we profess to be. Those cats are doing it.
Yeah, true. That kind of got lost a little bit. A lot of even the small bands currently are just aiming for the next major label deal.
When was the last time you guys played a house show?
2020, I think. January.
Remember, was it a good show? Was it a packed show?
It got pretty wet.
There's nothing like playing a house show. For me on tour, I would always play these things on tour. Honestly, I've never played a house show locally. I've only played them in thousands of miles from my home. But there's nothing like the vibe when you set everything up in somebody's living room and you just try to, like Rooney said, it gets wet. It's sweat. It's everything we want in that moment. And somewhere along the lines, we forget about that kind of stuff. And we reach for this brass ring that is success. We're chasing clicks. We're chasing plays. You know, we're not
We
kind of
become grifters, so to say.
I think you just become part of a system. So I think it's bigger than the idea of being a con man. I think you just become part of a system.
I would stretch the grift a little bit, because even if you're like part of the system, you're selling that you're not part of it.
Maybe, but you know.
Yeah, that's just capitalism incorporating its own criticism again, over and over again.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Mark Fisher writes about it with Kurt Cobain, and again, that's kind of the contradictions of Cobain, is that he's very well aware of the system in which he exists in, but he also wants to be bigger than the bands of his ilk. So they signed that major label deal. They could have stayed at Sub Pop, but you don't become 11 million records deep, never mind, at Sub Pop. You need to get that major label push. But as we're so atomized with genres And as venues, I can only speak for the States, are closing at a rapid rate or being taken over by much, much larger corporate promoters, the house show is almost a sanctuary for what is real.
I feel you. I feel you. I kind of get the feeling that this micro genring is a huge topic in itself. So why is this going on? Why do we need to push such strict identities on each other? Like I'm like I'm I don't want to go too much into it because this is like another 2 hours of talk in my opinion. But seriously, like for example, like Napalm Death even came up with the term grindcore. So I would just like be freely just call them like they're a grindcore band. And I had people tell me like yeah, they started out as a grindcore band, but actually ever since that album they became a death grind band because they're mixing death metal elements with grindcore. And I was like, well, didn't grindcore start with death metal elements like from the get go? Like don't come with reason. No, but the thing is like this micro genring is part of what you call this posturing about authenticity.
Mhm.
Like I'm more authentic than you. I'm a smaller micro genre. And this is pissing me off to no end because you even have like feuds between bands because I cannot play with them because they're like this and they're like that. And also I don't know, maybe I'm overstretching here. I also think that it's helpful because it's also part of the commodification. You can sell them better. It's like people
That's
are
why you
writing.
have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you have it.
Yeah.
That's ultimately why you have it. Neoliberalism has got
Yeah.
us thinking that we are the centers of our own universe. So what better sells a product and targets your marketing like micro genres?
Yeah, that's true.
So
Shoegaze, neo crust, black metal. I actually read that somewhere, so I'm not making this up.
it's funny to me because when you work large, and Europe has the bigger festivals than we do in America. But when I worked all the large American festivals, Coachella, EDC, Outside Lands, all that shit. What's so funny is no one cares about the micro genre from the promotion standpoint, from the vending standpoint. All people really care about is how many tickets are you good for? How many new people are we going to get if you show up here to this show that we weren't going to get anyway? And are they going to be of drinking age? That's a real thing. People, 21 is the legal drinking age here. If you have a bunch of 16-year-old kids that come to your show, promoters go, yeah, you sold out, but we didn't make that much money because nobody
because
fucking
they didn't
drink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
we have it easy in Germany with drinking age starting at 16. We just,
But also, do you fence the people that can drink off from the non-drinkers?
No.
Yeah, see, in the States, you have to gate them off.
Interesting.
So that's another problem.
You have to gate off the drunkards from the non-drunkards.
Mm-hmm. Can't have them passing liquor.
If that 14-year-old kid has only one beer, he's gonna vote for Satan in the next
But that's why when you look at concert sales for the bigger concert tours, it's generally older artists.
Yeah, because they want to cater to that older audience.
You have more money. You're going to drink.
My fucking God, yes.
Right?
More merch, more drinks.
I did a festival, and they never replicated it because they couldn't. It was The Who, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney.
Oh my God.
Who's the guy from? Oh God, what is his name? He's a lefty, the old school lefty. I can't think of his name.
David Gilmour.
The other one.
Bob Dylan?
No, Bob Dylan was there. The other one. Not David Gilmour, the other guy.
Roger Waters.
Roger Waters.
Yeah. He's the actual lefty. David Gilmour just
He's an actual lefty. He had a bunch of F Trump kind of shit. This was the first time all these guys had ever been on the same stage. Coachella is about 100 bands by like 20 stages. One stage, 2 artists a night, 60, 70 some thousand people a night, just for 2 bands.
Yeah, and they were
crazy merch numbers. Yeah, crazy numbers, crazy merch numbers, crazy ticket sale numbers.
And they could even sell wheelchairs.
They sold so much, everything. Go look up Desert Trip merch right now and look for people reselling the merchandise from there for like $300 for a hoodie and shit like that.
But if they go for the older audience, do they even drink enough?
That's why they sell the oxygen machines as well.
It was a mix because it was such a historic event. So there was actually a surprising amount of young people there. Because this is going to be the last time you probably see a lineup like this of these great bands. And, you know, what's the first conversation everyone has after they're done high-fiving and backpatting? So, what are we going to do next? Because everyone's dead. So they're constantly trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do who are we going to bring out that's going to do the same thing? We're going to sell this much merchandise. We're going to sell tickets at this price point. Because it's not just the amount of the ticket, it's the price per head.
I remember the Rolling Stones when they were playing live a couple of years ago. I know that the highest class of tickets in Munich back then was I think 300 euros. So a lot, way above $300. And I'm like everyone who bought a ticket is just a sucker. $300 for the fucking Stones? Are you kidding me? Go watch that awful movie by Martin Scorsese. Yeah, and just.
But they're too cross. They have to make a living.
Yeah, true.
I mean, and these are bands that don't need to play live anymore. They literally they were the part of the first wave of people that made money in music. And that's another thing we always have to remember, that for years, forever, musicians didn't make money. The idea of commodification in music is a relatively new thing. And the controls of that don't rest with the artist. They kind of do for certain independent artists that might have had a major label push and that now they're independent now. But even those guys can't sustain it because people took care of so many aspects of their life for them to then have to go in and try to figure out how all that shit works. They're like, I can't do this alone. I need a label.
Yeah. I kind of would like to do one last detour, just like more of an open question, because it's like we already established how arts and capitalism don't make. So metal is not an exception to the rule, even though it tries as hard, especially with some people for real, some people with performance. But one thing that kind of like caught my interest in the last couple of years, I have to say, like 10 years or something like that. I always say I play in a punk band because I don't want the metal stigma on my band. We don't play punk, to be honest. We play something loud and not too fast, but noisy. And but the thing is, like, metal has gotten the reputation of not only being like all about the show, not only about being all about like performance. It has gotten the stigma of being actually downright reactionary. And a friend of mine just recently pointed out to me that there was even a video by it's one of the most successful metal bands in the US currently, Five Finger Death Punch. Fuck them so much. And they even put out a video where they're like which is downright like Trumpish anti-COVID measure propaganda, like really stupid at that. It's not even like in any way an interesting criticism of how capitalist USA reacted to COVID. It's just like this the stereotypes. And if you kind of overstretch that, even you had bands like Malevolent Creation where they had an infight in the band because I think the vocalist was wearing a KKK shirt and the drummer didn't approve. And did happen. And then even you go even one step further, and that's when you hit like which is a little bit like also part of the music where I have to say that Rune and we still love the music, but we sometimes have to be a little bit cautious about what we listen to. You have, for example, the black metal scene, which has become like one of the cohesive measures of recruiting radical militant white supremacists. Like not even, we're not saying reactionary, like Five Finger Death Punch. Oh, they're pro-Trump, I don't like them. But we're talking about like that, for example, in the Ukraine, like entire bands, Peste Noire from France, moving over to the Ukraine because there they can fight with fascist militants, etc. And they actually like National Socialist Black Metal (NSBM) became a thing to the point where actual, like, honest to God, dangerous terrorists. I'm not want to go into panic mode and paranoia here, but like you have it in the US, the Atomwaffen Division. Like these people actually murdered people in the past, and their cohesive measure is some sort of weird connection to satanic black metal music, etc. So just like, and on the other way, smaller thing, which pissed me off to no end. There was this, I hated them, but there was this, they were super successful for a short time. They were called Young and in the Way. Maybe you've heard about them. And they, for example, had a t-shirt design, and with no t-shirt design, they said who designed it. But with one t-shirt design, they said designed by Antichrist Kramer. And Antichrist Kramer is one of those satanic skinhead guys who actually is an open advocate of white supremacy, militant neo-Nazism. He's actually somewhat connected to this whole Atomwaffen Division bullshit and stuff like that. So even a mainstreamish band kind of felt it was like cool, not only to go, how can I say, not actually authentic left-wing, but go downright right-wing, use that as a prop to put up. And
Yes,
what
but,
happened? Yeah.
Yes, but that guy also had a venue at a very mainstream club, I think, in Los Angeles.
He did? Okay.
He really did an exhibition there. So I don't know if it's maybe common knowledge to those people, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean that guy. What I love about that guy is he's so fucking stupid. He has German lyrics and he doesn't speak German, so he has these highly offensive neo-Nazi lyrics that just make you crack up laughing when you're German and you're reading that. So for example, he has songs like "Endgültige Entlösung," which is just wrong enough to kind of crack you up. Or one album is called "Hammer arischer Dunkelheit," which just doesn't work in Germany. Hammer of Aryan Darkness. So.
Yeah.
It's like you're like you try A for effort, but you're just a nitwit, like in every which way.
Yeah, just like South American and SBM bands called Siegkrieg 88.
Siegkrieg 88. Oh, it would translate to war, to victory, war 88. Okay.
Oh. Gotcha.
No, but that's let that be maybe the last question for today. How is it possible that or what happened that a subculture or like a counterculture became so, how can I say, so caught up in itself that it didn't notice that it's drifting in yeah. I think it's a little bit of different. I think the super right wingers are still kind of feeling themselves as anti-establishment, and I have to say, like being as militant as they are, they probably is a legit concern. They're terrorists, but for example, like Five Finger Death Punch, this like drinking the Kool-Aid in public so heavily, like really, they're gobbling it down. What happened? What happened to metal that this became cool? Or there was this guy, what's his, not
Ted Nugent?
Yeah, that guy is no, but there's this guy, I think he's called Phil LeBond.
Yes, from All That Remains.
All That Remains. And he's like, I have the feeling that metal just became bully music.
All I'll say is this. Sometimes it's the individuals, it's not the band, and I feel very bad for the band. Phil Anselmo of Pantera, when he was with, I forget what he was doing. He did a thing for, forget what he was doing. He did a fundraiser for something.
You mean the white wine accident?
The white wine accident. The white wine accident. After that happened, we were on tour and we were in Portland and we played another one of those venues where we were in a small room and a bigger band was in a big room, and Crowbar was in the bigger room.
Yeah, they're connected.
They are, because the guitar player for Crowbar is the guitar player for Down. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Jimmy Bauer.
No. The
No,
singer.
Jimmy Bauer.
Weinstein or
Kirk Weinstein. Yeah, of course.
Kurt
Jimmy
Weinstein.
Bauer is the one for Down and for I Hate God. I'm sorry. Yes.
Kurt Weinstein walks in our room, and we're all setting up, and he's wearing a shirt for a band that I know very well called Armed for Apocalypse. We're all friends. We played tour together. And so I was like, oh, those are my friends. And he goes, oh, you know Lil Kurt and Nick and all those guys. We sit down and talk. We have a good time. Tell him I'm on tour. He's from New Orleans. I've cooked in New Orleans. He gives me his number. He goes, whenever you're in town, call me up. Let's hang out. This is right after Phil Anselmo has, sullied the name of his bandmates by doing the white power, white wine bullshit salute. And
while wearing a Discharge shirt, I might add, that guy is so out of whack.
He's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And here I am talking to his bandmate and his bandmate's wife, other people from the tour. I think Revocation was on that tour, and they came in. And I don't think Kurt Weinstein, especially with that last name, is a racist. He might be in a band with a racist, but I don't think he's a racist. And I can't speak for every band that does some silly racist shit. But it is sad when one outspoken member destroys an entire group because you're stuck with that moniker. Now, I don't think he was doing damage control for his career because wasn't nobody there. This was hours before the show started. Bands like Five Finger Death Punch play, again, there's certain aspects of metal that are more akin to country music than it is what we grew up with. Because if you think about the first wave of nu metal, a lot of the backlash to it was very racially motivated. Because not only was it changing sonically, but also the look of the music was changing. And I think a lot of quote unquote gatekeepers didn't like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why you kind of have this return almost with people around our ages to be metal and to keep it metal. And it's still a bunch of old fat white guys. Maybe there's a girl in there. But, the look is very almost, we're going to stay in 1984. That's not where we're leaving. And subconsciously, maybe we're doing that for a reason. But I don't think metal, again, I don't think it's ever been that political. I think there's probably more political people in the genre than the music itself being political. And black metal is really interesting to me because it's almost like Twitter and Twitch. Like a lot of the people that got into it because of, oh, I like the imagery.
Yeah.
And I'm an outcast. And then you just keep falling down the rabbit hole.
And you crank it to 11 one more time.
And by the time, and the 11 is, well, fuck it, I hate Jews.
And we're all unapologetic shit posters.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That may be the real deal. Yeah, but when you think about that, is real black metal have to be real occultish? And I don't. This back to the authenticity thing, because there's people that what's the band? They're from the Bay Area. I can't think of their name. I actually know the singer a little bit. Deaf Heaven.
Yeah.
Would you call
Hipster
them black metal?
They call them.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably not, but I'd say that some bands who don't sound like black metal at all would be black metal. For example, Mortuary Drape.
I don't know them.
They're from Italy and they're from the 80s, and they might sound more death metalish, but they have a really sinister sound and very raw.
Yeah, but that's again a little bit the thing. Like that's just like, how do you even define a genre? Like
a person in the press tells you what you are.
Yeah, probably.
I'd still say it's more like a movement, not like a genre.
Hmm. Hmm. You think you wouldn't call black metal a movement? A genre, you would call it a movement?
Yes, more like from the 80s on, it was more about this whole idea of evil, grim, satanic, occult stuff.
Hmm.
That that
But is then like just like it's go okay, now we're going down the nerd rabbit hole to the 10th degree. But if you say like occult evil stuff, then like Possessed, Seven Churches, is that the birth point of death metal
Ooh,
or black metal?
maybe
both.
maybe
The
both.
Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Possessed is the Venn diagram.
I love Possessed. They're fucking awesome.
I was just listening to Seven Churches the other day.
Oh, nice one.
I'm
Nice
being
one.
totally serious. I think ultimately, man, I'll be really, this is going to sound horrible. It's whatever the main journalist that's the tastemaker calls you that you can hitch your wagon to and people can sell you as.
Mm-hmm.
We were with this small nothing label that doesn't even exist anymore when I was in the Fin Absolute du Monde. And they were like, we're going to call you guys neo noir. And we're like, sure, that sounds sexy. And then after we did the Godflesh stuff, we were called experimental industrial death metalers.
It's almost as good as shoegazing blackened crust grind or something like that.
And that was in the quietest, I think, said that about us. So, it's whatever is going to sell you is what you call yourself. I actually published an old interview that I found looking for something else. And I was kind of proud of myself in the interview. They're like, well, what would you call yourself? We hate labels. Don't give us a label. Don't put us in a box. Because that's how I felt about music. I listened to a lot of different kinds of stuff. One of my favorite bands is a bunch of black dudes called Fishbone.
Mm-hmm.
And Fishbone is from Los Angeles, and they are part of busing. When they were young, they got bused from their bad neighborhood into the white suburbs. So they grew up playing Parliament Funkadelic, and they met these white kids that were playing punk, but they all played instruments. They're like, oh, this punk shit's kind of cool. And they mix all these genres together simultaneously in every song. It's going to be part gospel, part funk, part metal. It's a million different things going off at one time. It's not for everybody, but I effing love those dudes because I don't know what to call it.
Or you do it the way that we did it? We just got drunk before the band was even formed and just assigned a label to ourselves because before we ever played one note together, we were really, really fucking drunk. It was like, it needs to be something nasty, something political, and something occult. And we were like, really, I think it was a mixture of beer and a peppermint liquor. So
It sounds like a nightmare.
It was great. It was great. The hangover was horrifying. But we came up, and I still stick to this, because we invented it. So no matter what we play, if we just pluck the E string on a banjo for 10 hours, it's still ours. Yeah, we're anti-fascist Luciferian warcore.
Warcore. Okay.
Warcore. Yeah, of course. It was a little bit like a nod to war metal, which is like somewhat of a black metal subsidiary where they just, I don't know, go like caveman riffs for an hour and but I don't know, yeah, I think it was like 8 or 9 beers and as much liquor. So, but yeah, still, I'm true to that. And I want to find the marketing guy who can sell that.
There's a person.
There is
It's called a public. You find the publicist first, and if you get a good enough publicist, they will create something for you. You'll be like, no shit, that's what I am. They're like, that's what you are.
Nice. And then they were gonna tour with Code Orange.
Are they good enough to do a headlining tour? That's the $1 million question.
Well, coining or judging by the last press photos I've seen, they're overdue for a headlining tour. That was some of the fakest shit I've seen in ages, and I was really feeling sorry for them because I like the kids, I really like them, but that was horrifying. That evolution from actually a couple of kids who just got photographed wearing the stuff that they wear every day to people in latex stuff that they never would have worn on their own. Like poor guys. That's capitalist sucking you dry.
Well, hey, only time will tell. You never know.
Yeah, probably.
You never know. When that budget runs out, everybody changes when your budget runs out.
That's true. That's true.
You start getting real radical. Like, what do you mean I'm not going to be in the magazine? Oh yeah, that budget's gone, homeboy. Figure some shit out. We ain't getting you in this magazine. Sorry.
Oh my god, yeah. I think this kind of wraps it up. I think we kind of went as far as we can go in with this topic in terms of without going overboard in detail. So if there is anyone in the chat who still wants to ask a very, very important question to any of us, fire away. I think we're going to wrap it up now. And I'm going to say thank you to the both of you. This has been a real joy. Like, this was practically me sitting at a bar table.
Every show should be you sitting at a bar, regardless of what you're talking about, Daniel.
That's true. That's true. Maybe we should move the studio to a bar. Yeah,
that would be dope.
Yeah, I just need my peppermint liquor. Like it
that sounds like a nightmare.
Then it's great because you're drunk as fuck, but you smell fresh.
I can't speak for Une, but that what you're talking about is like hood shit. Where we're from, that's hood shit. So
whenever I go to a huge metal, I never go to huge metal festivals, but I always go to Obscene Extreme. But whenever I go to Obscene Extremes in the Czech Republic, it's a grindcore and death metal festival. I always pack at least 8 or 9 bottles of peppermint liquor, not just for me, because everybody loves them so much. It's just like here, have another Berlin peppermint liquor, have another peppermint liquor, and we just get
hood shit.
It's like mouthwash.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, that's some rock good hood shit. You over there, some wino hood shit.
I once got told by a British guy that the equivalent in Britain is called Scrumpy, which is a apple-based liquor, and you can get like a gallon of Scrumpy for I don't know, like a pound or something. No, that's probably way more expensive by now, but that's their hood liquor, Scrumpy. Google it. I need to try it one day.
Someone asked me, I can see that on the side, what I think about Megadeth, and Megadeth is my favorite metal band. I'm a huge Dave Mustaine fan. I kind of don't like it when he talks.
He's kind of a dunce.
He's horrible politics, but the remaster on the last tour I was on, my guitar player Todd Buller had the remaster of Killing Is My Business. And like I said, Killing Is My Business was always a kind of scary sounding record to me. And listening to Killing Is My Business as the remaster, you could hear the drums, you hear the bass better. I felt like that was the most experimental thrash record of that era. And they took the genre from an experimental standpoint about as far as it was going to go. There's a lot of twists and turns with that album. If you listen to it in its running order, you kind of never really know where it's going to go. The sideways riffing of Mustaine. I'm a huge fan of it, and his work with Poland in those first 2 records I really love, and then of course Rust in Peace with Friedman and Menza are my classic metal albums. Killing is my go-to. For oftentimes it's like my virtual background for when I'm doing the show in the other room. So Megadeth is the bee's knees for me. And Kitty, I met them in Reno, Nevada once, and I'll leave it at that.
The first album they put out was kind of important to me when I was a kid. I think it was called Spit.
Mm-hmm.
But But maybe let's end this show because you just said like Megadeth is the bee's knees, with every one of us like just saying one band that people should check out after this show, no matter the politics, really. Like we already established that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mix well. So Rune, if you are gonna drop one band on our audience, what would it be? What's the bee's knees to you?
Yes, check out Master's Hammer from Czechoslovakia.
Okay, will do. And I'm gonna go a little bit old school for my taste. I'm gonna go for Wolf Brigade from Sweden. They're actually punk, but with strong death metal influences. Wolf Brigade. Just check out Damned or Lycanthropunk. If you're a metalhead or a punk fan, you're gonna love it.
Wolfpack still better.
Nah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It has been a joy. It was a lot of fun. Take care, everyone. Stay healthy, and see you in this show sometime soon. I think you're gonna do a stream for TIR today, aren't you, Jason?
Mm-hmm. We go live at 6 p.m. U.S. Pacific Standard Time, and it'll be our news roundup show with Kuba and a special guest co-host with us.
Cool. Check that out, everyone. And if you came over from TIR, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Most of our stuff is in German, but we promise to do at least one English episode per month. So just check us out. And we're cool, so support us nevertheless.
And we stream. We do co-streams with them. They do co-streams. You did a co-stream with Derek Varn, didn't you?
Yeah, we did that a couple of weeks ago, or months even. Jesus Christ, time goes fast.
So we have to schedule our stream too with you guys. So.
Yeah, and we should meet up again and talk about music, politics, or whatever, and or maybe even liquor. I think learn a lot.
Well, I want to get you guys back when Pascal comes back. So
okay, nice, thank you. I would love that. So everyone, have a great night. Take care, and yeah, see you around.
Leute, wir brauchen eure Hilfe. Wenn euch dieses Video gefallen hat, klickt auf Like, abonniert den Kanal und vergesst nicht das Glöckchen zu drücken, damit ihr benachrichtigt werdet, wenn wir neuen Content droppen.
Außerdem solltet ihr uns überall folgen, wo wir verfügbar sind. Das ist Facebook, Instagram, Twitter und Twitch. Und wenn wir irgendwelche Ankündigungen machen oder Posts, dann shared, was das Zeug hält. Gebt uns all eure Liebe.
Wir haben mittlerweile ziemlich signifikante Kosten. Wenn ihr es euch irgendwie leisten könnt, unterstützt uns doch auf Patreon. Dann kommt ihr auch in den Genuss verschiedener Vorteile, wie zum Beispiel Zugang zu unserer Discord-Community oder Zugang zu den ultrageheimen Patreon-Episoden, die wir dort posten. Außerdem könnt ihr uns natürlich auch über PayPal Spenden zukommen lassen.
Außerdem haben wir mittlerweile einen eigenen Online-Shop. Das heißt, wenn ihr euch immer noch fragt, was ihr euren Lieben zu Weihnachten, Ostern oder sonst wie schenken könnt, geht dorthin und kauft duftes Merch.
Alle Links dazu hier in der Beschreibung oder auch auf unserer Webseite 99zu1.de.
Vielen Dank fürs Dabeisein, danke für die Unterstützung und wir sehen uns in diesem Theater.